would like to see this meeting be a joint venue between the city of Rushford and the city of Rushford Village. It isn't that one is to dominate or whatever, that we be respectful to one another, and at that point. So I'm assuming, are we going to want roll call, or is that a formality that we forego on?
We don't do it.
Okay. So let us, looking at the agenda that we have.
Well, let's begin.
Liz is not going to be here. There's things that could be added if there was desire and or time. However, I think that the agenda is relatively full.
Yes. I think we can work on 1, 2, the four topics. We'll have a good day, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, City of Rushford Village has Jim Kochi is here to help us answer some of the questions that might be in regards to the water and or sewer, if we get a chance to have that in the discussion as well. Our attorney will be arriving at some point, hopefully. That would be Tom Mannion. So, Chris, your attorney is not Bill Chang. I mean, your engineer, rather, and then your attorney is
Scott Springer.
Scott Springer, okay,
And John Stewart is here representing DEL.
Okay, well, it was instead of Mr. Chang.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So anyway, the first item is something that has been going on for a long period of time, and there's been a lot of talking back and forth between committee on the village and the committee on the city in regards to the potential purchase of water versus the water treatment plant in South Rushford. We've had the same issue in South Rushford as what the city had. We met last fall at some point in time with Jeff Dale and Paul Halverson. They were the same ones probably that dealt with the city, and it was their recommendation that the discussion start with the city, because the city put in a new treatment plant, and everything is likely going to be sized in order to handle the needs that we might have. So it was upon their recommendation. We'd already had a pilot study in place that was going to do a radium removal. It was a filtration system that would have a medium that would collect the radium. We were a little uncomfortable with some of the concerns because it might end up being a radioactive material that needs to be disposed of. However, they assured us that wasn't as big of a case as what we might have made out of it. But anyway, at the beginning of that project, it got to be that we were assured that they could do it for X number of cents per gallon. The project was completed. It was actually not bad end results, except the numbers did not come into play. We had been discussing the problem we had with Dave Engineering, and Mike said that, we need to know what our options are, and they established a timetable, a very rigid timetable, which means that Mike is actually, or Dave Engineering is the one that's kind of driving the word is we got to be and when. We kind of missed our benchmark with having something in place by the 1st of April. We, as a council, asked as a group, decided that we were going to give it just a little bit more time, have another, try to have a discussion with the city and see what can be done. And this is where we are at today. Dale has been involved in the committee from way back. At one point in time, I was kind of once removed myself from the committee, thinking that maybe my involvement in the council over the years, it was best to maybe take a step back and let councilors rather have the discussions. So maybe Dale, if you, and Roger was also part of those discussions, but maybe I can allow you to.
Yeah, Roger and I have been, we've met with Wendy, I think, I don't know, what, maybe 3 times, 4 times, something this spring, and I guess we got to a point where we do have some numbers on water that Wendy had put together. And I guess we couldn't come together on maybe an understanding of what, you know, contribution margin might be if you looked at water pricing. And we were looking for a wholesale rate, and what we got is a retail rate. And, you know, I guess the thought in our mind is everything you probably have done in the city of Rushford, you've already got your infrastructure costs is covered in your current costing to your customers. I would assume that is. If everything's done properly, I imagine it's there. So when you do extra volume of that, the only real cost you have is your variable cost, which become electricity for pumping the water, chemicals for treating it, and probably some O&M on that. And that would be a whole lot different structure if you would elect to want to do that than just the retail price of water. And we're trying to use that as a competitive option to look at the options we already have done some study on. And the problem we have right now is two things we really have a question on, need an answer on, I guess, is say, one, do you really want to entertain the idea of selling water and at a wholesale cost? Roughly, what is a wholesale cost? And we were quite concerned about getting any studies prior to that, because the reality is if the cost can't be competitive, there's no sense either unit wasting a lot of money on studies. And I gotta presume that you just put in the new water plant, which I'm sure Mr. Chang probably did very extensive work on to get what he needed to size the plant correctly, et cetera, et cetera. So therefore, I would think most of those things already are available. And obviously, if you get down to where you think you've got a competitive cost, you can get some wording that makes sense to both parties, then yes, the engineers need to get involved in saying, how do I do this, how do I do this, spec out the project, et cetera. So that's where we're at right now, really, is trying to say, can we come to grips with those two issues? Because I don't think it's prudent for either one of the government units to go ahead and spend more money until you can answer the first two questions, because it's literally a moot point if those can't be answered properly. So that's kind of where we're at right now, I guess, and time-wise, obviously, it was very critical to either, get that issue resolved to that point, or else move on and just say,
right,
forget about it, it's not gonna work out. So, anyhow, that's where we're at, and I think the opportunity was, good from a standpoint of saying we're not poke more holes in the ground. When I say build more treatment plants to do that, the more you can utilize what you've got, generally it lowers all your unit cost, whether it's water, whether it's sewer. So it makes some sense, I think, to say, how much could you add to your revenue stream in an approach like that to cover your other costs? And that's just the kind of logic we're looking at and saying, okay, I guess, folks, it's, we can only ask a question, we can't answer that question. So I think one main cause here tonight, hopefully, is to try to move that issue forward so we'd all know, is there some potential here or isn't there?
Well, the first question is, do we have the capacity to sell?
Oh, please.
Mr. Mayor, if it would please you, I did a little bit of work on that, and I have a very short presentation. If it would be your pleasure, I'd go through that.
That's acceptable?
Very
Thank you, guys.